There's a moment right before everything changes that feels exactly like the moment right before everything falls apart. You can't tell the difference. Nobody can. That's the part no one warns you about. So let me ask you something before we go any further. What if the very thing you're about to quit is the thing that was seconds away from working? Sit with that, because most people never find out. They stop one breath before the turn. And the tragedy isn't that they failed, it's that they'll never know how close they actually were. We've been sold a story and it's a convenient one. Someone posts a win, a launch, a moment of arrival, and it looks instant, clean, like it happened in a single afternoon of inspiration. But that story is edited. It's a highlight reel with 3 years of failed attempts cut out of the frame. Every person you've ever admired has a version of themselves from not that long ago who was ignored, broke, or laughed at. Think about it this way. A famous inventor once ran through thousands of failed materials before landing on the one that worked. When asked about it, he didn't call them failures. He called them steps. Not because he was being clever with language, but because that's genuinely how he saw it. Each attempt eliminated one wrong answer and moved him one step closer to the right one. That reframe wasn't a trick, it was survival. The myth of overnight success doesn't just mislead you, it quietly convinces the people doing everything right that they're doing something wrong. That's the real damage. Not that the myth is false, but that it makes patience look like failure. When patience is actually the whole mechanism, here's what actually precedes every breakthrough you've ever witnessed. A room with no audience. No one is filming it. No one is clapping. It's just you, showing up on the day you don't feel like it, doing the unremarkable, repetitive work that doesn't look like progress because it isn't finished yet. This is the part people underestimate. Not the talent, not the luck, but the willingness to keep showing up to a room where nothing is happening yet. An athlete who's later remembered for a single game-winning shot didn't build that moment in the game. He built it across thousands of empty gyms, alone before anyone was watching, missing the same shot over and over until his body stopped thinking about it and just did it. The applause came later, the work came first, and it came in silence because eventually something does happen, but only for the ones still in the room. The ones who left 5 minutes early never find out what the 6 minute had for them. At some point, it will feel like everything is falling apart at once. Plans collapse, people doubt you, sometimes the people closest to you. And in that moment, it feels less like a setback and more like proof that you were wrong to try in the first place. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It has a floor. It doesn't go forever. What feels like the end of the story is usually just the end of a chapter you haven't learned to read yet. There's a well-known story about a writer who was rejected by publisher after publisher over a dozen times for a book about a boy wizard. Each rejection could have been read as the universe delivering a verdict. Instead, it was just one editor's opinion on one day based on incomplete information about what readers actually wanted. The book eventually became one of the best-selling series in history. The rejections didn't predict that. They just delayed it. Every failure carries information. It's not a verdict on who you are. It's data on what didn't work this time, with this approach, in this room, with this person. The people who make it aren't the ones who never hit the floor. They're the ones who noticed it had a floor at all and pushed off it instead of lying down on it. Somewhere along the way, someone will tell you it can't be done. Maybe they already have. And here's what's easy to forget in that moment. Their no isn't a fact about your future. It's a reflection of their own limits, their own fears, their own experience of what's possible. People can only see as far as their own imagination allows, and most people's imagination is smaller than your potential. That's not an insult to them. It's just true of most people, most of the time. They're not lying to you. They genuinely believe what they're telling you. But belief isn't the same as truth, and their ceiling was never meant to be yours. The ones who change the world are, almost without exception, the ones who kept moving after being told to stop. Their doubt was never a wall. It was a mirror, showing you the edge of what they could imagine, not the edge of what's actually possible. And you don't have to keep looking into it. There's a quieter danger than rejection, and it's one almost nobody names directly: comparison. Scrolling through other people's progress while you're still in your own room with nobody clapping. Watching someone else cross a finish line you haven't reached yet, and feeling like that says something about your pace, your worth, your chances. It doesn't. Every single person you're comparing yourself to, started somewhere invisible too. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, and that comparison was never fair to begin with. The only version of you that matters in this equation is the one from last year. Not the stranger online, not the classmate, not the sibling, just you then and you now. If that person moved forward at all, even an inch, that's the entire scoreboard that counts. Nobody talks enough about this part. The cost isn't just what you lose by quitting, it's what you never get to find out. The version of your life where you kept going doesn't just disappear, it becomes a question you'll carry for years. What if? That question is heavier than any failure, because failure teaches you something. It hands you a lesson, sharp and specific, that you can use the next time. Wondering teaches you nothing. It just sits there, unanswered, for the rest of your life, quietly resurfacing at 3 in the morning, at anniversaries, at moments when you see someone else doing the thing you almost did. That's the real risk of giving up early, not embarrassment, not loss. The permanent, unanswerable what if, a question with no expiration date. Here's something almost nobody talks about because it doesn't photograph well. The turn, when it comes, is quiet. It's not a fireworks moment. It's a Tuesday. It's one more conversation, one more attempt, one more version of the thing you've built 10 times before, except this time something clicks. Not because that attempt was special on its own, but because it was the accumulation of every attempt before it. Persistence doesn't work like a lightning strike. It works like a lock, turning slightly with every single try until the day it finally opens. From the outside, it looks like luck. From the inside, you know better. You know it was try number 211 and try number 210 did its job even though it didn't look like it at the time. And when it opens, it will look sudden to everyone watching. It won't be. It never is. Every version of you that struggled, that got it wrong, that felt behind, that version was paying tuition, not wasting time, paying for something. Every uncomfortable conversation, every rejection, every plan that fell apart, all of it was buying you something you couldn't have gotten any other way. The version of yourself who knows what it actually takes. That's not a consolation prize. That's the entire point. The struggle isn't happening to you. It's building you one uncomfortable lesson at a time into someone capable of holding what you're asking for. There's a reason people who get everything handed to them often can't keep it. They skip the tuition, so they never learned what the thing actually costs to maintain. So when it hurts, that's not a sign you're on the wrong path. Sometimes it's the clearest sign you're on the right one, because growth and comfort were never able to live in the same room at the same time. None of this means staying is easy. Let's be honest about that, because pretending it's simple is its own kind of lie. Staying means getting back up on a day when getting up feels pointless. It means showing up to the room again after 100 sessions where nothing seemed to change. It means hearing another no and choosing again, not to let that no become your final answer. It doesn't require certainty. It doesn't require you to feel ready or confident or even hopeful on any given day. It just requires one more action than yesterday, one more attempt than the version of you who almost quit. That's the whole secret, and it's less glamorous than anyone wants to admit. It's not about being fearless. It's about moving forward while the fear is still sitting right next to you. There's another quiet trap worth naming: the belief that you're waiting for the right time. More savings, more confidence, more clarity, a better moment when the conditions finally line up. But the conditions rarely line up. The people who eventually succeed almost never started at the right time. They started at an inconvenient one, a scared one, a messy one, and adjusted as they went. Waiting for certainty before you act is waiting for something that isn't coming. Certainty isn't the price of admission. It's the reward for having already started. You don't get clarity first and then take the step. You take the step and the clarity shows up a few steps later, almost as an afterthought, almost as if it was waiting to see if you were serious. So if you're waiting to feel ready, stop waiting. Readiness isn't a feeling you arrive at. It's a decision you make before the feeling shows up, and it usually shows us up late. Walking in after the work has already started without it. It's worth being precise here, because never give up can sound on the surface like it means never changing course. That's not what this is about. There's a real difference between quitting because it's hard and redirecting because you've learned something new. One comes from fear. The other comes from information. Quitting says, this is too hard, so I'll stop trying entirely. Redirecting says this specific approach isn't working, so I'll adjust the approach and keep the goal. The goal survives, only the method changes. That's not giving up, that's the opposite. It's caring enough about the outcome to let go of an ego attachment to one particular path toward it. So when you ask yourself whether to keep going, ask the more specific question. Am I abandoning the goal or just the method that isn't serving it anymore? Most of the time, the honest answer points you toward adjusting, not quitting. The goal is still worth it. It was never the method that mattered. So here's the question again, the one from the beginning, except now it means something different. What if the moment you're standing in right now, the one that feels like collapse, is actually the turn? What if the only difference between the people who make it and the people who don't isn't talent or luck or timing, but simply this? They didn't leave the room before the door opened. You don't have to feel ready. You don't have to feel certain. You just have to stay in the room one more day than feels reasonable, because the story only ends here if you decide it does. The chapter that feels like an ending is very often just the page before the turn, and you don't get to read ahead. Nobody does. That's exactly why the people who keep going, when they have every reason not to, end up being the only ones who find out what was actually waiting on the other side. You cannot give up, not because giving up is weak, but because you don't actually know how close you are, and neither did anyone else right before they made it.